The people that do the marketing for these Cloverfield movies, they are gods. Seriously, they are the gods of marketing. Hey, what's up, you guys? Film fan 0599 here again, and today we're going to review the Cloverfield Paradox. So, Cloverfield Paradox stars Guga Mara, Daniel Bruhl, and David Oyelowo. And what this film is basically about, it's about this space crew who get sent up into space to test out this thing. And what happens when they do test out this thing? They get sent to a whole new dimension. And now they need to figure out how to basically get off of this dimension to return home. So what did I think of the Cloverfield Paradox? Now, going into the Cloverfield Paradox, I was very excited. I was excited before it was even called the Cloverfield Paradox. This is when it was called God Particle. Just the fact that I heard that we were getting a third Cloverfield movie had me excited. I could not wait to see what they could do with a third installment. Then last night during the Super Bowl, they had a spot for this. This was like the first footage we had for the movie, so we just saw this spot for the newest Cloverfield film. It was called, the Cloverfield Paradox, and it said after the spot, coming to Netflix tonight. I was like, wait, what? Like, did I read that correctly? Did it say coming to Netflix tonight? And sure enough, that's what it exactly said, because if you went on Netflix, it said tonight, available tonight after the Super Bowl. And I was like, okay, the game end so I can watch this movie, because I was so excited to watch this film. And the Super Bowl ended. I was like, alright, so let's go ahead and watch the movie. It was on Netflix. It was available right then and there. I was like, alright, let's do this. Let's watch it. And I was disappointed. Yeah, this movie isn't that good. It really isn't. Now, that's not to say that this movie is bad. This movie is not a bad film per se. It's just a mediocre at best one, if we want to say. It's not good. It really isn't. I am a fan of this franchise. I really liked the first Cloverfield. I thought that was a really solid monster movie. I really enjoyed that film a lot. It was a very good movie and a very different take on the found footage genre, if you ask me. I really liked that movie a lot. And 10 Cloverfield Lane was a fantastic thriller to me. I love that movie. That movie is really great. I really love 10 Cloverfield Lane a lot. So going into this one, I was really excited and had a lot of high expectations for it. Unfortunately, it's not that good. It really isn't, and which is really disappointing considering how great, how enjoyable the first one is and how great the second one is, and how great the marketing was for this one. The fact that they announced it, that was coming out literally 4 hours before it aired. You know what I mean? So, and then just to be this mediocre, yeah, you can imagine my disappointment. So, yeah. But there is good things about it. There are things I do like about the Cloverfield Paradox, and I'll get into those. So, my positives with the movie are, first being, I did think the acting was good in the movie. I'll say the acting is pretty solid in the film. I thought everyone gave a solid performance. Judith Mara is the best actress in the whole film. She's the best thing about the whole movie in general, to be honest with you. I really thought she gave a great performance. I really thought she was the only character that was really properly developed and, had sense of background and all that, and it made me really care for her character. And I actually really liked her in the film. I thought she was fantastic in the movie. I did enjoy Guga Mara in this movie quite a bit. She was really great in this film, and I thought she really gave a great performance. Daniel Bruhl was really solid in the film. David Oyelowo was really good. So, yeah, I will say the acting is pretty solid. I did think the acting was pretty good in the movie. There are some moments in the film that I was interested in. I was interested to see where it could go and whatever, you know what I mean? Like, there are some intriguing moments here and there in the film that I was like, okay, I'm interested to see where this could go. Like, there are some moments like that in this movie that did have my intrigue. I was like, oh, okay, I am interested to see where this could go. So, there are moments like that in this film. I will say the directing is very 50-50 with me with this film. I will say there is some really good directing at points. Like, it is pretty well shot, pretty well edited. Cinematography isn't too bad with the film either. So I will say the directing is very 50-50. I'll say with the film, and there is some good, like, well shot moments and some good editing and some pretty solid cinematography for the most part. So yeah. The visual effects aren't too bad either. I actually thought the visual effects were pretty solid with the movie, actually. It did have a good scope of space, and it did make the space shuttle that they were staying in look really solid as well. So I will say the visual effects are pretty good with this movie. And lastly, like I said, the pacing at points was pretty good. Like I said, it does pick up at a nice pace at points, and I was, like I said, invested in seeing where it could go at some point. So yeah. Now the negatives with this movie, because unfortunately there are a lot of negatives with this film. First being, the character development is very poor in this movie. Now, like I said, the acting is pretty good from the actors. I thought the acting was pretty solid, honestly, but the characters themselves, besides Guggenheim Raw's character, all the other characters I thought were poorly developed. It was like, oh, they're on the space station, so you must care for them. You must care for the fact that they might die, something might happen to them. Like, that's all I felt like with it. Like, there's no sense of background on these characters. No sense of, like, why are they there? What are the reason that they're there on the mission? You know what I mean? Like, there's never a sense of that, honestly. And they just don't give any proper character development to these characters, and we're supposed to care about them because, they're on this space shuttle, and that's what I felt like they were doing with these characters, was just like, oh, like, you must care for these characters now because, something might happen to them. That's just all I felt like with these characters. I never felt any sense of, like, actual character, if you know what I mean. Like, I didn't really think they were properly developed, and now I'm not saying every single one had to get, like, the deepest backstory ever, but you could have at least developed your characters a little bit better, and I really felt like they did not do a good job with that. This movie feels very, very, very sloppy, honestly. It is very messy, this film. It honestly is. Like, it really goes all over the place. Like, they never have a good sense of narrative in this film, if you know what I mean. Like, there's never a good sense of narrative in this movie, and that's a really bad thing. And it just becomes really sloppy, honestly. Like, I was like, okay, where are you trying to go with this? It honestly leaves you a little bit confused as well. Like, what are you trying to do with this? And it just feels very, very sloppy to me. Like, I felt like it was messy and it didn't really have a good sense of narrative. And I just felt like that was messy, honestly. Really, really messy. The fact that they didn't have a good sense of narrative in this movie. It made it feel very, very sloppy and very uneven of where it was trying to go. The movie feels very overbloated too. Like, they tried to do way too much in this film. Like, try so hard, and especially with trying to tie into the first two movies. Like, they are trying so hard at that. And it's just like, quit it. Like, quit trying so hard. Like, and it feels very overbloated, and it just feels like they're trying so hard with the movie. And I'm just like, why? And speaking of that, the fact that this movie has to constantly keep on reminding you that they're in the same universe as the first two Cloverfield movies, it gets pretty annoying, actually. Where they're like, oh yeah, we're in the same universe. Don't worry, we're in the same universe as the Cloverfield films. And it just keeps on constantly almost reminding you that it's in the same universe as the first two Cloverfield movies, to the point where it gets annoying. And I'm just like, okay, I get it. I know that this is in the same universe as those two movies. And it just got to a point where it was really annoying. Also, the movie's, like I said, the movie doesn't have a good sense of narrative. The finale to this movie feels very, very rushed, honestly. Like, they rushed this finale so hard. And honestly, it became very messy. Like, something, of course I won't spoil it, but just something comes out of nowhere that's honestly kind of predictable. And, it just becomes a mess. And it's just like, wait, what? And they rushed this finale so hard that I'm just like, okay, slow it down a bit. You're going way too quick. and it's not good. Like, it really isn't. Like, it becomes a pretty rushed as hell finale. And also, this movie feels very formulaic. Like, really, honestly, this feels like every generic science fiction space movie. Honestly, this feels like Alien or, hell, even last year's movie Life. Honestly, like, it feels like every space movie. Honestly, it feels very formulaic to every space movie. And I was just like, oh, like, it feels so formulaic. I'm just like, now, you can't do formulaic and basic and still make it good. You can do that. But it just feels exactly that in this movie. Very formulaic. Also, the writing isn't very good with this movie, honestly. It really isn't. And that sucks to say, because the dialogue was, like, one of the best things about 10 Cloverfield Lane. And the dialogue in here is not that great, honestly. Like, it's pretty poor writing, honestly. The directing, like I said, it's very 50-50, and the other 50 is that it's not good at points. Like, honestly, it becomes very poorly directed at points during this film. It really does. And I really did think the directing became very poor at points during this film. And lastly, I did think the movie moved at a pretty slow pace, honestly. For the most part, this movie moved at such a slow pace. Honestly, it's an hour and 42 minutes, but it did not feel like an hour and 42 minutes. It felt like it was longer. And it just moved at such a painfully slow pace. I was just like, move it along, please, honestly. So, yeah. So overall, the Cloverfield Paradox, big disappointment, man. Very, very big disappointment. This movie is not that good. I really didn't enjoy this film. This movie is just a pretty meh movie at best, honestly. It really is. I did not enjoy the Cloverfield Paradox. And the fact that this movie, this movie should have been something cool, especially with the way that they were marketing it and stuff like that, but it just ultimately became a disappointment. So it's time for my official grade on the Cloverfield Paradox, and my official grade on the Cloverfield Paradox is a C. It's okay at best. I really didn't enjoy this movie all that much. There were some good elements that I did like about the film, but unfortunately the negatives outweigh the positives in this situation. I really didn't enjoy this movie all that much. So, yeah, Cloverfield Paradox gets a C. So, if you had seen the Cloverfield Paradox, what did you think of it? Leave in the comment section below. I'm FilmFan0599, and we will see you out later. Peace.